I learned how to walk in shoes that weren't meant for me. That's not a metaphor. That's not exaggeration. It's one of my earliest memories, my feet wobbling, my balance wrong, the floor cold beneath thin soles while someone clapped and told me how pretty I looked. I didn't know why it felt wrong. I just knew it did. My name is Evan. At least that's the name I use now. I'm 29, work as a logistics analyst for a regional shipping company, and live in a rented townhouse on the edge of the city. Quiet streets, trimmed hedges, neighbors who wave but never ask questions. I like it that way. Predictability feels like safety when your past was anything but. From the outside, my life is stable, respectable, normal. Inside, it's more complicated. Because I wasn't raised like other boys. I wasn't allowed to be one. Backstory: a childhood that didn't belong to me. I was born into a family that wanted a daughter. Not gently, not secretly, desperately. My mother had lost 2 pregnancies before me, both girls. My father rarely spoke about it, but my mother carried that grief like a second spine, rigid, shaping everything she touched. When I was born a boy, she didn't cry. She corrected it. She never called it punishment. She called it protection. She said the world was cruel to boys. Harsh. Demanding. Girls, she said, were allowed to be soft. Safe. So she made me one. Not overnight. Not obviously. Slowly. Clothes first. Then hair. Then names, nicknames that stuck too long to be jokes. At home, I wasn't Evan. I was Ellie. Outside, I was told to stay quiet, to let her speak for me. By the time I understood something was wrong, it was already normal. That's the terrifying part about control when it starts early. You don't recognize it as control. You recognize it as life. I learned how to sit properly before I learned how to argue. I learned how to smile on command before I learned how to say no. And every time I resisted, I was told I was ungrateful. You don't know how lucky you are, my mother would say. This is for your own good. By the time I reached adolescence, the lie had become a system. At school, I was Evan. Quiet, withdrawn, invisible. At home, I was something else entirely. I survived by splitting myself in 2. The present, a man who learned how to hide. That habit never really leaves you. Even now, decades later, I move through life with the instinct to compartmentalize. To present only what's expected. To keep the rest locked away. My job suits that part of me. Logistics is about systems, order, efficiency. Numbers don't ask who you are. They just need you to make them work. And then there's Isabella. She's my girlfriend of 2 years. Confident, perceptive, emotionally intelligent in a way that sometimes feels dangerous. She works in interior design, creative, expressive, everything my childhood taught me to suppress. She fell in love with the version of me that survived. The calm one. The controlled one. The man who doesn't panic when things go wrong. She doesn't know why I flinch when she suggests we're decorating certain rooms. She doesn't know why mirrors make me uneasy. She doesn't know why I freeze when she jokes about childhood photos. And she definitely doesn't know the truth about how I was raised. Because what do you call that? Abuse? Conditioning? A parent's love twisted into something unrecognizable? Even now, I'm not sure. All I know is that my past didn't stay buried. It waited. The inciting tension. The townhouse has a spare room. Isabella calls it the future studio. A place for creativity. Possibility. Storage for now. For me, it's something else. Because when my mother passed away last year, I inherited a single locked trunk. No note. No explanation. Just wait. It sat unopened for months. Then longer. Every time I passed it, my chest tightened. Not with nostalgia, but with dread. Isabella noticed. You don't have to keep it if it stresses you out, she said gently one night. I know, I replied. But I did keep it. Because some part of me needed to know what she'd left behind. The night I finally unlocked it, Isabella was away visiting her sister. The house was quiet in that familiar, pressurized way. Inside the trunk were things I hadn't seen in decades. Clothes. Photographs. Proof. Not just of what she'd done, but of how completely she'd shaped me. As I stood there, holding pieces of a childhood that wasn't mine, one thought surfaced, cold and undeniable. I didn't choose this, but it chose me. And the life I built, the relationship I was trying to protect, they were about to collide with a truth that never asked for my consent. I didn't open the trunk all at once. That would have been too much, too honest. Instead, I did it the way I'd learned to do everything difficult in life. In pieces, with plenty of excuses to stop. The spare room smelled like dust and cardboard. Isabella's half-finished mood board leaned against the wall. Colors she liked, textures she imagined for a future we hadn't fully discussed yet. I knelt beside the trunk and lifted out one item at a time. Folded fabric first. Then shoes, small, narrow, worn at the heel. My stomach tightened. These weren't costumes. They weren't playful. They were lived in. Evidence of repetition. I sat back on my heels, the floor cold beneath me, and suddenly, I wasn't 29 anymore. I was 8, standing still while my mother adjusted a collar, being told not to fidget, not to complain. "You'll thank me someday," she used to say. "You'll understand." I never did. The trigger. The photos were worse. Not because they were shocking, but because they were ordinary. Birthday parties. Family gatherings. Smiles frozen in time. My mother's hand always on my shoulder, guiding me subtly into place. And me, neat, quiet, well-behaved, disguised so thoroughly that even I'd started believing it. I dropped the photos back into the trunk and closed it quickly, like it might bite. That night, I barely spoke during dinner. Isabella noticed immediately. "You're doing that thing again," she said gently. "What thing?" "Pulling inward," she replied. "Like you're somewhere else." I forced a smile. "Just tired." She studied me for a long second, then nodded, but the concern didn't leave her eyes. Later, as we lay in bed, she traced lazy patterns on my arm. "You know you can tell me things," she said. "Even the weird stuff." My chest tightened. I almost told her. Almost. But the words felt too big. Too loaded. Like once they were out, they'd reshape how she saw me forever. "I know," I said, and hated myself for how easy that lie still came. Internal conflict, control versus identity. The days after that felt unstable. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just off. Little things started setting me on edge. Isabella humming while folding laundry, the mirror catching me at the wrong angle, the way my reflection sometimes looked unfamiliar, like it was waiting for instructions. At work, I caught myself zoning out during meetings, fingers tapping unconsciously against my leg in a rhythm I hadn't used since childhood. Correction rhythms. Waiting rhythms. The past wasn't just memory. It was muscle memory. That scared me, because it meant whatever my mother had done hadn't stayed in the past. It had trained me. The unwanted return. One afternoon, while Isabella was at a client site, I found myself standing in the spare room again. I told myself I was just reorganizing. I wasn't. The trunk was still there. Closed. Silent. I stared at it for a long time, then opened it. This time, I didn't stop myself. I lifted one of the outfits, not with curiosity, but recognition. The fabric was soft. Familiar. My hands remembered how it felt even though my mind rejected it. I didn't put it on. That mattered. But I didn't put it away either. I stood there, holding it, heart pounding, not with excitement, but confusion, anger, a strange grief. Why did this still have power over me? The sound of keys at the door snapped me back to reality. Panic shot through me. I shoved everything back into the trunk, slammed it shut, and barely had time to steady my breathing before Isabella walked in. She paused when she saw me standing there. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said too quickly. Her eyes flicked to the trunk. "You've been in here a lot lately," she said casually. The room felt smaller. "Just sorting things," I replied. She smiled, but there it was again. That crease. Suspicion. The suspenseful situation. That night, Isabella suggested something that made my pulse spike. "We should go through your mom's things together," she said. "Might help you process." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I don't think I'm ready, I said. She nodded slowly. Okay, but don't lock yourself in with it forever. Her words echoed long after she went to sleep. Because she was right, and because I was running out of places to hide. The trunk wasn't just a box anymore. It was a threat, a truth waiting for the wrong moment to surface. And deep down, beneath the fear and resistance, there was another feeling. Quiet, dangerous, undeniable. If Isabella found out, I wouldn't just be explaining my past. I'd be confronting how much of it still lived inside me. The breaking point didn't arrive loudly. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just a single moment where control slipped and didn't come back. The setup. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of quiet day that pretends to be safe. Isabella was home all morning, moving through the house with that relaxed energy she had when she wasn't thinking about work. Music played softly. Windows were open. Life felt normal enough to be dangerous. Around noon, she grabbed her bag. I'm meeting Clara for a couple of hours, she said. You good? I nodded. Too fast. The door closed. Silence followed. And the silence felt deliberate. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at the empty hallway, waiting for the familiar urge to pass. It didn't. Instead, something inside me rose. Not excitement, not curiosity, but pressure. Like holding your breath for too long. I went to the spare room. I told myself I wouldn't open the trunk. I did. The confrontation with the past. This time, I didn't look at everything. I chose one item. A simple dress. Nothing dramatic. Neutral. Practical. The kind my mother preferred because it didn't draw attention. My hands felt heavy as I held it. Anger surged unexpectedly, sharp and disorienting. You didn't get to decide this, I thought. You don't get to control me anymore. And yet, I didn't drop it. I stepped toward the mirror instead. I didn't put the dress on fully. I didn't need to. Just holding it against myself was enough to trigger something deep and physical, an old awareness of posture, of how I was expected to stand, how to exist without taking up space. My reflection split. Adult me, jaw tight, eyes hard. Child me, still waiting for permission. That's when I heard the sound that shattered everything. The front door. My blood ran cold. Isabella wasn't supposed to be back yet. The obstacle. Evan, her voice called. My heart slammed against my ribs. I turned, panicking, and in the movement my elbow clipped the trunk. It tipped. The lid fell open. Clothes spilled out onto the floor. Shoes. Photos. Everything I'd been hiding. Footsteps approached. I didn't have time to explain. I didn't have time to hide. Isabella appeared in the doorway and stopped dead. Her eyes dropped to the floor, then lifted to my face. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable. What is this? She asked. Not angry. Not accusing. Confused. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She stepped closer, slowly, as if the room itself might break. She picked up one of the photographs. Her breath caught. That's you, she asked. I nodded once. That's not. She stopped herself. That's not a costume. No, I said hoarsely. It's not. She looked back at me, eyes wide now. You were a child, she whispered. The words hit harder than any accusation. Emotional and physical tension. I sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. I didn't choose it, I said. I didn't even understand it. Isabella sat across from me, photo still in her hands. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. I laughed once, short, bitter. Because I didn't know how to explain something I never consented to, I said. Because I was afraid you'd think it meant something about who I am now. Her eyes searched mine. Does it? She asked carefully. That was the question I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. I don't know, I admitted. What I do know is that it never stopped affecting me. She looked down at the trunk again. You still kept these, she said. Yes. Why? The answer came before I could stop it. Because part of me is still trying to understand what was taken from me. That's when her phone buzzed. A message lit up her screen. She glanced at it, then back at me. I need air, she said quietly. I need to think. Fear surged. Isabella. I'm not leaving, she said. But I can't process this in here. She stood, grabbed her jacket, and paused at the door. There's something else, isn't there? She asked softly. Something you're not saying yet. I didn't answer. Because she was right. And because if I spoke that truth out loud, I didn't know what it would make me. Symbolic moment. After she left, I stood alone in the spare room. The trunk was open. Nothing hidden anymore. I picked up the dress again. Not with longing, not with fear, but with clarity. This wasn't about wanting to be someone else. This was about surviving being made into someone I wasn't. I folded the dress carefully. Not to wear. Not to destroy. But to acknowledge. For the first time, the mirror didn't feel like an enemy. It felt like a witness. The house didn't feel empty after Isabella left. It felt exposed. Like every wall had shifted just enough to let the truth seep through. I stayed in the spare room for a long time after the door closed behind her. Didn't sit. Didn't move. Just stood there, surrounded by the evidence of a childhood that had never been mine. The trunk was still open. I didn't rush to close it this time. That felt important. For the first time, nothing was hidden, not from Isabella, not from myself. I picked up one of the photographs again. The edges were worn, corners soft from years of being handled. In it, I was maybe 9 years old. Hair neatly styled. Clothes chosen for me. Smile practiced. I studied my own face. I didn't look confused. I looked obedient. That realization hit harder than anything else. The aftermath. Isabella didn't come home that night. She texted once. I'm safe. I just need time. No hearts. No reassurance. Just distance. I replied with a single word. Okay. And meant, I understand. Even if it breaks me. Sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, memories rose up uninvited. The way my mother corrected my posture, the way silence was rewarded, the way resistance only made things worse. I'd spent my entire life trying to be unnoticeable. Now I was being seen. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I didn't trust myself to answer questions. I didn't trust my voice not to betray me. Instead, I cleaned. Not the frantic kind. The careful kind. I reorganized the spare room. Put the trunk back where it belonged. Not hidden. Not displayed. Present. That felt like progress. Or maybe just another illusion of control. The unspoken question. That afternoon, Isabella came back. She didn't knock. She walked in like someone returning to a place they weren't sure still belonged to them. We stood in the living room, a careful distance between us. I talked to my sister, she said, and a therapist. I nodded. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I don't think what happened to you was your fault, she continued. And I don't think it defines you. Hope flickered, dangerous, fragile. But, she added, I don't know yet what it means for us. There it was. The line I couldn't cross for her. I'm still figuring out who I am, I said. Not who she tried to make me. She looked at me for a long moment. And what if, she asked carefully, that journey changes you in ways you can't predict? The question hung between us. Because that was the truth neither of us could avoid. Healing isn't neutral. Understanding yourself doesn't always lead back to the same place. I don't want to lose you, I said quietly. I don't want to lose you either, she replied. I just need to know who I'm standing next to. She reached for her bag. I'm going to stay with Clara for a few days, she said. Not to punish you. Just to breathe. I nodded. Again. Final image. After she left, I stood in front of the mirror. No props. No disguises. No expectations. Just me. For the first time, I didn't feel split. I felt unfinished. And maybe that was okay. My phone buzzed once more. A notification. Not from Isabella. From an unknown number. We found your childhood records. There are things you were never told. If you want the full truth, call us. I stared at the screen. At the future opening up in a way I hadn't planned. The past wasn't done with me yet. And neither was the choice of who I would become, now that I finally had won. To the audience, call to action. So tell me, Should I confront everything I was never allowed to question? Or protect the fragile life I've built, even if it means never knowing the full truth? Would you open that door or leave it closed?